All right, we're gonna talk some punky.
He just got done telling me, he's like, that last interview you did was like really good, but it's a little too inside baseball, you know. Like, so here I'm getting prepped, like, okay, I'm gonna be broad and general. Like, we're gonna talk punk rock.
No. You look. NOFX, or however you want to say it. I mean, if you're a musician, and we at that nerd show, we do cover music, and so yeah, it's a very interesting story about this band who is famous but never with a major record label.
Well, the movie's not about NOFX. NOFX, he's the owner of the record label.
Right, but that's what I was getting at too, in regards to the record label as well.
Cool. Yeah.
So,
I mean, the majority of the movie is focused on, like, we kind of set up who he is.
Right.
But most of the movie is really focused on the ethics and the kind of the community behind the record label and what he was able to build.
Right. And with that said, we're going to jump right into it and tell us a little bit about the documentary and Fat Wreck label. That's what happens when you do all these interviews.
Well, Fat Wreck is a feature-length documentary about Fat Records, a very popular independent record label, punk rock record label based out of Southern California.
Okay. How did you come to this project? I mean, are you a punk rock geek yourself, or did you just find this fascinating? And
well, I'm two things. I mean, I'm a wannabe filmmaker. I guess technically now filmmaker, because I've completed.
You made a film. You're a filmmaker. You're not a wannabe anymore.
I wanted to be a filmmaker, and when I was looking to do the first project, I had done a few music videos. I'd just gotten into it about 2013. I had done music primarily. I had a small record label and a recording studio that I had done for 10 years. I'm an audio engineer. And that seemed to be coming to a close. So I wanted to start doing film stuff. So I started doing some music videos. Ended up producing a pretty big music video. Had a pretty big budget. And in that music video, I did like a behind-the-scenes documentary, like real short. I was like, well, I want to do something on a topic that I care about, you know,
right.
And see what I could do and learn how to do it. That was the plan. This is the practice run, and it really just snowballed after that. Like there were a lot of people like me that wanted to see a Fat Records documentary.
Right.
So I kind of just got a camera and just started shooting.
Well, I think at this point, the label itself, it's pretty much, I don't know if urban legend's the right word, but there isn't much known about it except for like word of mouth and people talking about their own experiences. I think there's no one's documented it in full, I guess, up to this point.
Right.
So.
Well, Netflix is around. I'm seeing all these documentaries about these rock, which are great. But I'm like, how come no one's talking about this thing? Which, in my world, I mean, it introduced me to like politics and ethics and like the type of person that I want to be, the type of people I want to be around.
Right.
Like it really kind of shaped those things and carried over these years, you know. And I'm still into a lot of the same bands, And when I wear one of those shirts and I walk around somewhere and someone else sees the shirt, they're like, like I know what that is.
Like you're part of the club, like
You we can say connect,
Right.
And a lot of it's similar to nerd culture. It has a nerd culture.
Yeah.
It has a wiki community. I mean, it's full nerd culture where they and I'll say that's not derisive by any means. It's where they're so passionate about it, it's created its own subculture.
Well, I mean, that's how you get cult movements or behind something. I mean, for us, it's similar to the cult movement behind Firefly.
Firefly.
Yeah. We'll throw we'll talk a little brown coats there. Yeah. But I mean, it's like, I've seen that, or I listened to that music, or I've heard of this band and stuff like that. What is the most interesting thing that you found about this label?
Really is the ethics. I think is the strong ethics on treating people right. I think a lot of people coming into a movie like this, like think, oh, punk rock, and they see the mohawks, and there's casual.
You're automatically rebellious against everything,
right,
but
really, when you explore the way their way they do business. Well, I mean, I can't say every punk rocker, but Fat Wreck Chords in general.
right.
Treated everybody really well. I mean, I think one of our challenges was, in most documentaries, you want to have a big conflict. You want to have that, destroyed from the ashes and to rebuild.
Right.
But what do you do when a story is everyone treated everybody the right way? You
right.
know what I mean? Or, and for the most part, made the effort to treat people the right way.
I think if people want that big explosion, they can go watch, Sid and Nancy. And
right. This is a unique story in the music industry.
Right.
Where, and I've worked in the music industry with in that world, like Demi Lovato and the Jessica Simpson, the American Idol world. I worked in that world, and it's the complete antithesis. Here's people grouping together and treating each other right and building each other up and really having that sense of community. And that, a lot of the music world, not all of it, that mainstream, it's cutthroat. It's
right.
If you're getting ahead, I'm not.
Right.
And it's just a complete.
Well, I mean, it sounds like to me that in describing the label that it's not about the dollars. It is about the art form more than in itself, and that we're giving you a chance to put your stuff out there.
Right. Well, I think what they were doing is not. Have you heard of the term LCD?
Yes.
Lowest common denominator.
Right.
I think they reached out to audiences that they weren't going for that.
Right.
They went for what they liked and and what they were passionate about. And other people were like, oh, me too. And I think they're able to find, I think it's like a diviner rod in a lot of ways, where it really pulls people out, and you kind of, like, the people who are into it, the music may pull them in, but if you're a douchebag, you don't end up in that scene, because it's just really kind of like, hey, dude, be cool, and some of these bands have songs about not moshing in the front because people can't watch the show. It's not about an aggressive, I call it neo-hippie.
That's actually a great term. Neo-hippie.
Because if you ask them, they're like, oh, dirty hippies. But really, they're like about the community. They're about social issues. They're about all these things.
I think in any kind of performance art industry, I mean, the biggest thing is you don't want to deal with the dicks.
Right.
And we're going to say that in the interview, because there's a lot of dicks out there.
There's a lot.
Okay. I mean, everybody has to rise up from something or from somewhere, So why would you ever want to be able to put up with that? I mean, it seems like to me that art, for the sake of the art, should be more important than the bottom.
I think that they did their thing. They happened to catch a wave.
Right.
Of that rise of Green Day and pop punk.
Right.
Where they were able to get pulled up by that wave, but rising tide ships. They were able to ride that wave and not have to go the MTV route. Where they did a conscious effort to not.
Well, and it should be noted, I mean, this is before the internet. This is where really word of mouth,
Every label now wants what Fat Records had done already. I'm background in marketing.
Sure.
And marketing now is all about building relationships.
Right.
This is how they talk. It's like you have to have a relationship with your customer.
Right.
Fat Records is building those relationships, and I've heard of the stories. Once I started making the movie, the influx of emails I've gotten from people like, thank you for making this movie. Like, this meant so much to me. Like, this is, I lost my train of thought.
It does happen. Tell us in working with like Fat Mike, or showing his background a little bit, not necessarily from being a punk rocker, but and getting this label. I mean, because you obviously hung out with him quite a bit in doing this documentary.
I hung out with Mike. Not a lot. We're best friends, but I think when I started making the movie, he wanted to give a vibe for who I was.
Right.
He's a very smart guy. I think he might be going for his EGAT this year. I mean, I'm being facetious a little bit, but he has this movie coming out, which he has no creative control over. I mean, but still, he's going to be on the screen.
Right.
He has a book coming out next month. he has a musical coming out, possibly. I'm not sure how I actually can say, but he has a musical coming out, which has one of the guys from Avenue Q that did it. Some Tony Award winners have worked on it, and so he's gonna have that out, a book, a new NOFX album, and so he's dominating all media. And so like when I'm like, how did you? Because he didn't have any control over what I was doing, or the timing or anything. So how did it happen that he was able to manipulate it, that he ended up in the same year having all these things hit? And I don't think and one thing I learned about him is I think he kind of sets things up. Like he was asked early on, because he's had other he has a Passport documentary about NOFX on tour, and has had other documentary guys, and they were like, have asked him, let's do a Fat Records documentary. He's like, nah, it's boring. So he told everybody else no. And when I started doing it, they asked him, like, why are you letting this guy do it? It's like, because he's just started doing it. So like he's like that kind of guy where it's like, well, let's see how this plays out, and kind of got a vibe. And I guess he said, I am unpassionately disinterested. Enthusiastically disinterested. That's what it was.
Now, I want to point out something in the press notes that they give us here. The last line, arguably the best film in the history of American cinema, featuring, and this is the most important description, a dominatrix spanking a puppet.
Now we had our people research this extensively to make sure it hadn't happened. And as far as we could find, we are the only, which makes us the best.
So we have to talk about the puppet a little bit.
Oh, I love to talk about the puppet. Hello, Governor. What's up with this thing?
I think this is a first for our outlet. We've never actually filmed an interview that involved the puppet.
Oh, this is my impression of Fat Mike. It's not very accurate. What is the best I can do? All right, sorry, I don't have a Mike impression. And in the movie, we do. Have you ever seen Drunk History?
Yes.
So we do that thing where the people are talking and the puppets are. So we don't have an impression for him. So I just kind of started doing that when I figured it'd be.
Nice.
So yeah, go ahead. What do you?
Well, I mean, tell us a little bit about the puppet. The history? How did this come about?
So one of the bands in the movie on Fat Records is called Bad Cop, Bad Cop.
Right.
And the lead singer is she's an amazing artist, Jenny Cotterill. She's done murals on Parks and Recreation. Some of the murals in the courthouse are hers.
Nice.
She also has drawn the backgrounds of Metalocalypse.
Okay.
Which when she told me this, I was like, I'm a huge Metalocalypse fan. I can't believe that. And she says, we're after a show, we had filmed one of their concerts. We were talking. She goes, hey, I do a lot of stuff, but I make puppets. Because I had been asking her about animators because I was looking at Titmouse and that kind of thing. And she said, I make puppets. And I had I was like, oh, that's it. Have you ever seen Crane Cakers?
Yes.
Okay. So not that we were like, I had that kind of concept where do recreations. Because we have all these great stories, but we don't have pictures and, of exactly when these things happen. And I knew that I wanted to do something non-traditional. I should know what it was. But when she said that, I was like, puppets. And I really did. I Googled, I wanted to see if there was any documentaries that ever had puppets in them doing reenactments. And other than a puppet documentary, we were pretty much the only one. So I was like, well, this is really great. And so I commissioned her. I said, hey, I want to do puppets, but I want the top tier puppets to be super detailed. I wanted them, because what we did in 3 tiers. We did punk rock sock puppets. So we would have 10 to 15 of those. We did some mid-tier levels that could kind of have their heads could be switched out.
Sure.
So we could save a little money in that regard. And it really, in the test screenings, anytime a puppet showed up on screen, we got a reaction from the crowd. So we jammed more puppets in there. I mean, and then pulled it back. So yeah, we actually,
just like a dominatrix.
And there's people talk about that. It's a big part of Mike. He has his sexual exploration is mentioned. And what better? How often?
Well, you're making a documentary about a punk rocker and the label he starts. You have to talk about this.
And how many times do you put a ball gag in a puppet's mouth?
See,
And we actually had dominatrix, actual dominatrix.
do you feel like this is what Quentin Tarantino was really missing from Pulp Fiction?
I think if he was going to redo Pulp Fiction with puppets, I'd see that movie. You're planting a seed.
Right.
Do a full recreation.
With the puppets.
I would love to see that, actually. So somebody get on that.
All right. Because they are going to... we can have fun with the puppets all day. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. What is the biggest thing that you took away from this documentary that maybe you weren't expecting or you were...
Erin Kelly Burkett, his ex-wife. It's a person that really runs the label. And a lot of people don't know that because he's such a big figurehead.
Right.
No pun intended. He's such a dominating figure, and she's such a person that is one of those, people who like being behind the scenes. They like doing that, and she's the one who made it all run.
Right.
Literally, he'd come in. It's in the, some of the movies, in the lines of the movies. Like he'd come in. I got some great ideas, and then she's like, let's do this. It's like, oh, by the way, I gotta go on tour. Can you make that happen? And even I was a huge fan of Fat Wreck Chords, and I didn't know. And when I first started inquiring around for interviews, they're like, oh, you gotta talk to Erin. And I was like, oh crap, I had just talked to Mike and got the approval, but really, there's this whole other group of people that really made things happen. I think that to me was the biggest surprise, that Erin, everyone thinks Fat Wreck Chords, Fat Mike, but really it's Erin that, made things happen.
Well, I think that's just a good example of there's always a good woman behind a good man.
Yeah, I think there's always, I like to take the thing, move it out of that realm and say there's always someone behind the scenes.
Right.
That really makes the person that you see.
Right.
And that's where all the real heavy duty work goes in. And I can say that as somebody who made a movie, there's a lot that goes on to make things.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of people who helped me that are behind the scenes, that I could not have done anywhere close to what I've done without those people. So
cool.
But yeah.
All right, this one is just for our outlet because we are nerds. So that's right.
I have my blue Morpho shirt. I don't know if you know what that is.
I do.
Okay.
And have you ever been to the crappy town where I'm a folk hero?
No.
Still my favorite episode of Firefly. Anyway, if you could direct, star, or produce, would you do Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Trek.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Not the new Star Trek.
No, we're not talking about the reboots.
No. Have you Star Trek? Have you heard? I'm going to turn this around on you. Have you heard the podcast Greatest Generation?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a huge fan, so I just want to name drop.
Okay.
Next, I would do a Star Trek. I mean, if I could. And I like the J.J. Abrams ones because I like J.J. Abrams.
Sure.
But I do think that there's something about Star Trek.
Well, it's always a big debate on our show, but we do firmly believe that the heart of Star Trek belongs in TV.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
That,
You didn't like the Next Generation movies? Any of the movies?
No, but I think movies are good fillers.
Wow.
Hey, I'm one of the only ones that really loved Nemesis.
Oh, I like all the Next Generation movies. I mean, they're varying levels of quality.
Sure.
But I mean, there are datas in all of them, so.
Sure, exactly. And obviously, you want to do a film with puppets on the bridge of the Enterprise.
I don't know if that's appropriate.
You don't want to get pigeonholed as the puppet guy.
No, and to be honest with you, this is probably the last time I'll do puppets. I want to do something else next.
Okay.
Really, I'm interested in doing narrative stuff. In fact, we put a lot of... When we were doing the motion graphics and some of the concepts for the movie, I said Avengers.
Nice.
I wanted it to be where our motion graphics tell a story and it's big and it's way bigger than it's supposed to be, and end credit scenes, the whole thing. I'm into that. I wanted to do that for. This was a way for us to play this movie. Once we got the IndieGoGo and we hit the $30,000, we were like, I have fun, I can make a movie with what's the limit? I can do whatever I want. So it really, it was a topic that I was passionate about. It also gave me the ability to flex some filmmaking chops and work with just immensely talented, way more talented than me people, you know, and it makes me want to make more stuff with people and different kind of stuff, you know. Music documentaries are awesome, but I would love to do comedy documentaries. My wife is writing a 3-part trilogy, science fiction superhero thing, so
nice.
like that's years off because it's a big budget kind of thing, but like I mean that's like I enjoy the process of doing it and being able to tie that in with my musical heroes and getting to make puppets. Like,
right.
How often do you get a chance to like make a puppet? Like, hey, I'm gonna spend thousands of dollars on some puppets. Hey, wife, is that okay? No. Like, but it's for a movie. It's a tax write-off. All right, let's do it.
And how often are you going to get to say that and being able to make a film?
Right. So.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, and good luck with the film. I can't wait to see it.